Shalom Israel, it's your brother Marcus G here. I will be starting a series that I will be doing weekly. The name of this series is Truth for Thought. And basically what it is just going to be things that I want to bring forward to the nation of Israel, which is basically the truth, and it's for us to keep in our thoughts. So this week's Truth for Thought is the covenants. They still hold true. So I want to start by, we want to define exactly what is a covenant. So a covenant is an agreement as a noun. As a verb, it is to agree by lease, deed, or other legal contract. So it's kind of like a goods and services deal in economics. We have certain goods and services that are provided for certain compensation. In the event of covenant, as it is in regards to our nation, the Most High made a covenant with us in exchange or in lieu of us simply doing one thing, and that's being righteous. By definition, righteous would be keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. Now, I want to go and look at just one covenant that the Most High made. He made this covenant with Noah. So I want you to come with me or join me, and we're going to look in the King James Version of the Bible with the Apocrypha. Mine just so happens to also have the Jubilees. And what I want us to go to is Genesis 9 verse 11. And it reads, "And I will establish my covenant with you. Neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of a flood, neither shall there any more be a flood to destroy the earth." So the Most High makes this covenant with Noah, but Noah has to do something in lieu of this covenant to hold. And it's part of his contractual part of the agreement. Noah was instructed to build an ark and bring all walk of life in pairs upon this ark. So Noah upheld his part of the contractual agreement, and as of today, so has the Most High. There's not been a destruction of the earth by a flood ever since that flood way back in Genesis. So that is an example of a covenant and how it works. So now let's get a little deeper and let's see about covenants with nations of people. Who did the Most High make covenants with? What were those covenants contingent upon? Again, I'll say in regards to our nation, and the answer to that, and we will prove it, is going to be Israel. And the end of the bargain that Israel was to keep, or is to keep, is simply to be righteous. To keep the laws, statutes, and commandments. So I want you to go with me now to Romans 11. Romans chapter 11. And this is in the New Testament. We're going to look at verses 26 and 27. And they read, Romans 11 and 26. And so all Israel shall be saved, as it is written, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob. For this is my covenant unto them, when I shall take away their sins. So here we see the Most High mentioning the covenant that he's made with Israel. And it's a direct, it's not a all-inclusive for Israel and Edom, or Israel and Moab and Ammon. It literally says, and so all Israel, and it later references to Jacob, who we know later in the Bible his name was changed to Israel. So I want to go back to, and we're going to start in the Old Testament. I want to go to Exodus 6 and 5. So we're going to go to Exodus chapter 6 verse 5. And it reads, and I have also heard the groaning of the children of Israel, whom the Egyptians keep in bondage, and I have remembered my covenant. So here, this is in regards to the children of Israel are in bondage and in captivity in Egypt. And the Most High is saying, I hear my children's cries, and I have not forgotten my covenant. So I want to go from there to the same book, Exodus, but I want to go to chapter 34 and verse 8. We're going to read Exodus 34 and 8 through 10. And it reads, and Moses made haste and bowed his head toward the earth and worshipped. And he said, if now I have found grace in thy sight, O Lord, let my Lord, I pray thee, go among us. For it is a stiff-necked people, and pardon our iniquities and our sin, and take us for thine inheritance. And he said, behold, I make a covenant before all thy people. I will do marvels, such as have not been done in all the earth, nor in any nation. And all the people among which thou art shall see the work of the Lord, for it is a terrible thing that I will do with thee. So the Most High is addressing Moses here. And Moses basically, he humbles himself and he comes before the Most High. As in many of the prayers of our forefathers, they humble themselves. They show extreme meekness when coming before the Most High. And the Most High responds and mentions yet again making a covenant with these people. So I want to go from there to same book, Exodus 34, same chapter. But I want to go down to verse 27. And it reads, and the Lord said unto Moses, write thou these words, for after the tenor of these words, I have made a covenant with thee and with Israel. So now there's a nation that has been put on the end of this covenant. And we're starting to see that it's going to become more and more detailed the more we go. So I want now, still in the Old Testament, and we're going to get this per Isaiah 28 and 10. Precept upon precept. Here a little, there a little. So we're going to be coming out of the Old Testament. We're going to be coming out of the New Testament. We're even going to be coming out of the Apocrypha. But we're going to stay in the Old Testament for right now. And we're going to go to Leviticus 26 and 42. Leviticus chapter 26 verse 42. And it reads, Then will I remember my covenant with Jacob, and also my covenant with Isaac, and also my covenant with Abraham will I remember, and I will remember the land. So as I stated a little earlier, we're starting to get a little more detail now. As you see here, the Most High is saying he remembers his covenant not only with Jacob, but also with his father Isaac and his grandfather Abraham. So as you see, it's starting to become more defined as to who this covenant is with. So I'm going to go to the New Testament now, and we're going to go to Hebrews 8 and 10. That is Hebrews chapter 8 and verse 10. And it reads, For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. Let's stop. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. Not with the whole world, not with the house of any other nation. But for this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord. So this is not me as your brother Marcus G just telling you my opinion. This is definitely not a figment of my imagination. This is straight from the Bible. I will put my laws into their mind and write them in their hearts, and I will be to them a God, and they shall be to me a people. So here we have the Most High saying he's making a covenant with these people. And he's using a lot of possessional pronouns when he says to them a God, and he says, and they shall be to me a people. So the Most High has a chosen people of all of the nations at that point in time that were here on earth. He had a chosen people. That is something that I'm going to do a lesson on another time, maybe next week, maybe. So I'm going to go from there to Acts 3 verse 25. So we're going to go to Acts chapter 3 and verse 25. Here it says, Ye are the children of the prophets, and of the covenant which God made with our fathers, saying unto Abraham, and in thy seed shall all the kindreds of the earth be blessed. So let's think about that for a minute. The Most High is addressing children of Israel, saying, you all are the children of the prophets. And that I made a covenant with your father Abraham. And I also am acknowledging, and this is the Most High, that his seed, meaning every generation after, shall all the kindreds, meaning every generation of the earth, be blessed. So as we get a little further, we're going to see more of a breakdown. But again, it's speaking of Abraham, who is the father of Isaac and the grandfather of Jacob, who is the father of the 12 tribes. So we'll go now to Acts 7, verses 7 and 8. And we'll see if it gets more and more so detailed. And it reads, and the nation to whom they shall be in bondage will I judge, said God. And after that shall they come forth and serve me in this place. Now we read a little earlier where he said he's making this covenant with Israel, and he will be to them, or to us, our God, and we his people. Here we have again, that shall they come forth and serve me in this place. And he gave the covenant of circumcision. And so Abraham, a forefather, begat Isaac, yet another forefather, and circumcised him the 8th day. And Isaac begat Jacob, and Jacob begat the 12 patriarchs. So we're starting to get a little more detail now. We have all of our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and now we're starting to see the 12 tribes in the 12 patriarchs. Okay, so it's now showing that generational, and it's getting more and more detail as these generations are being introduced. So from there I want to go to Romans 9 and 4. Still New Testament. But we're going to Romans chapter 9 verse 4. And it reads, who are Israelites? I ask again. Who are Israelites? And now we'll hear who Israelites are. To whom pertaineth the adoption and the glory and the covenants and the giving of the law and the service of God and the promises. So we got a lot going on right here. First, there was a question. And I love questions, because what questions do is they get people to think. They trigger the thinking process. So the question was, who are Israelites? Then it goes and says exactly who this nation is. And this nation is to whom all of the following pertain: the adoption and the glory and the covenants and the giving of the law and the service of God and the promises. So this actually kind of shows that there's a difference between a covenant and a promise. A promise, you just word of mouth. I promise you, I'll be there to pick you up 5 o'clock. As soon as you get off work, I promise you. However, as I stated earlier, a covenant is more contractual. So it is not ironic that to the Israelites were given these things, such as the law and the service of the Most High, because contractually it was understood that Israelites were to keep the laws, all of the laws, statutes, and commandments. So here we see, like I said, it differentiates the difference between a promise and a covenant. And it also says who this walk of people are. Now I want to go to Ecclesiasticus. We're going to go to the Apocrypha. And we're going to go to Ecclesiasticus. We're going to go to chapter 24, verse 23. And it reads, all these things are the book of the covenant of the Most High God, even the law which Moses commanded for an heritage unto the congregation of Jacob. Now I want you to pay a real close attention to not just that whole verse, that whole scripture, that whole verse, but there's a word in there that I want you to kind of keep in your mind, and that is heritage. A heritage is something that's ongoing, kind of like seed. The seed of a father will be ongoing through his sons. It's like bloodline. Okay? So I want to go from there. We're going to stay in the book of Ecclesiasticus, but we're going to go to chapter 44 and verse 22. The very last verse in this particular chapter of Sirach or Ecclesiasticus. And it reads, with Isaac did he establish likewise for Abraham his father's sake the blessing of all men and the covenant, and made it rest upon the head of Jacob. I want to stop right there, because now again it's addressing the covenant with the forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and now Jacob. He acknowledged him in his blessing, which is the blessing from Isaac, and gave him an heritage. There's that word again. Gave him a bloodline, gave him a descendancy, and divided his portions among the 12 tribes did he part them. So here we go again. The whole nation of Israel. All 12 tribes. As we read earlier, it said the 12 patriarchs. And right after that, we heard, who are the Israelites? The very same people with the very same forefathers and the very same covenants and promises. So as we've seen throughout just the Bible itself, in regards to the covenant, the Most High never forgot his covenant up into this point. And I'm going to leave Israel, I'm going to leave you with a couple of pictures that I took, and I'm going to say a verse over each of those. It's a total of three, but I'm going to do one more verse just so that you'll know what it will be that you'll be looking at. So if you would please go to Genesis 9 and verse 13. Genesis 9 and 13. And it reads, I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for the token of a covenant between me and the earth. Now, you'll hear me say that again over one of those pictures. But I do want to share with you one last verse, which is not going to be over the pictures. And that verse is going to be Genesis 9 and 15. And I shall remember my covenant, which is between me, you, and every living creature of all flesh, and the waters shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh. Again, this is the covenant that he made with Noah. All right. And I want you to skip down to Genesis 9 and 17. And God said unto Noah, this is the token of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is upon the earth. So, remember I started with Genesis 9 and 13. And I spoke of this bow. So, with that, Israel, I want to show you what not only I am here in Tennessee, and I'll give you a little background to this. What it was Hurricane Ida had made landfall in Louisiana. I'm pretty close, I'm in Tennessee, and the outer bands of the rain had already fallen here in Tennessee where I reside. And as a result, that's when I called these pictures. So I'm going to share with you these pictures as well as a verse over each picture. And as I said, they will be Genesis 9 and 13, Genesis 9 and 16, and Joshua 3 and 11. Genesis 9 verse 13. I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth. Genesis 9 and 16. And the bow shall be in the cloud, and I will look upon it, that I may remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is upon the earth. Joshua 3 verse 11. Behold, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth passeth over before you into Jordan. In closing, Israel, I want to leave you with this. And this is Genesis 9 and 14. And it shall come to pass, when I bring a cloud over the earth, that the bow shall be seen in the cloud. So Israel, I say to you again that the covenants have been with us. The covenants have been shown as far as what the Most High would do, and that is in lieu of what we are to do, which is to keep the laws, statutes, and commandments. With that, Israel, I say, Shalom, till next time.